started, if you remember to like, comment and subscribe and ring the bell, because you will get a notification every time we're uploading onto YouTube. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, and it is Christie's Readings across the board. Let's get started. So we're doing the Idaho murders, which took place on the 13th of November 2022. Now, there were 4 victims. There was Ethan Chapman, Xana Carnudo, Madison Morgan and Kaylee Gonzalez. Now, they were the students that lived in that property. This property was known to be a party property. It is well noted that other students have came forward who previously lived in the property, where they said it was well known within the campus and within the university that if you were looking for a party, that was the house to go to. Spirit box within this case as well at the end of this. But first we're going to give the timeline, give the facts of the case and give them exactly how they are. But I also want to add in things that I found myself where I find it very interesting but I find very conflicting at the same time. With the timeline, on the 12th of November at 9 p.m, Kaylee and Madison were at the Corner Club while Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chai. Now both those locations are 5 minutes from 1122 King Road, where Kaylee, Madison and Xana obviously lived. The girls were streaming live on Twitch from 10 p.m. that evening. Now at 1:30, Kaylee and Maddie left the corner bar, and there is footage of those lovely ladies walking up the street, and she actually says that I've told Adam everything. Now at 1:41, they went to the grub truck, and also that was possibly the last CCTV that was ever seen of the girls. When the girls got their food and they headed back to 1122 King Road, and that is when they went out of frame for the last time or any video footage was caught of the girls. Said that Xana and Ethan had received a food delivery at 4 a.m, but it was a contactless one, meaning they didn't have to come to the door, they had paid before, so again the food was just dropped off and left at the door. It was 8 hours after the murders at 11:58 that the 911 call was made, and it was made by someone who came across as quite unconscious. Now when the police attended, they discovered 4 bodies and 2 surviving victims. It broke, it shook not just the campus but the media and certainly social media. Now it was likely due to the fact, especially being a university, people are young, social media is such a big thing. So I think maybe that's the reason it hit social media so quickly, but that would have put the police under a lot of pressure, and bearing in mind it took them 6 weeks to find a suspect. Very vague around the case from the word go, and it took them until the 16th of November to come out and say there was 4 victims and they had been stabbed to death. Now on the 7th of December they had put an appeal out for a white Elantra car, and at this point they still didn't have a suspect, and on the 30th of December they arrested Brian Kohlberger in Pennsylvania. Kohlberger was a 28-year-old PhD student from a neighbouring campus. He was charged with 4 counts of murder, and that's when the media and social media could then build up a picture, and the families as well, of what exactly happened that night. 4 roommates were back home by 2 a.m, and one of the surviving roommates had heard a noise in Kaylee's room around 4 a.m, and she presumed that Kaylee was playing with the dog, but she did hear her say, "Someone's here." The roommate also heard at 4:12 a male's voice saying it's going to be okay. That the police gave was at 4:04 the car is seen driving into the neighbourhood for the 4th time. 4:12 the surviving roommate hears the male voice. 4:17 a neighbour's dog starts barking and the cameras pick up on that. At 4:20 the white car is seen leaving in a hurry. 5:25 the car is then spotted back in Washington State. Now at 9:12 and 9:21 a.m. shows the suspect's phone was near the scene of the murders the next morning. FBI got a DNA link was because they uploaded it onto the genealogy and it came back as Brian. Now it was also said that Maddie could have been Brian's intended victim, that he was following her, that he'd maybe messaged her and liked some of her photos and things like that as well. But it was also said that the family discovered this, and they also discovered Instagram accounts where it showed that he would have been following her, but it was all disregarded by the police, and the police had become very vague with the families. That Brian's phone pinged in that area from August 2022, so it was thought that he possibly met Xana and Maddie through the restaurant that they worked at, but it was also said that he attended the same university as one of the girls' sisters. A call was made It was said it was made from the surviving victims' phones, but they were not the one that made the call. And it was also discovered that Ethan's brother had been phoned before the police was phoned. Arrived at 1122 King Road, the house was already full. There was no weapon found, there was no bloody clothes or anything found, but again, preserving evidence, the house was full at this point. And obviously Ethan's brother had been called before the police. Did tell the families that it was likely Maddie was killed before Kaylee, before there was a gagging order put in place. Now, I said the case was pretty vague, but again, the fact there was a gagging order put in place, the family had spoke out in 48 hours, the programme, and been in some documentaries, so I don't know if the gagging order was put in place due to that or there was other reasons for it. Said that Brian followed all 3 girls on social media, but he only ever messaged one and had a lot of images of one. Now, they didn't release who that was. Put out a timeline to basically show that Brian had been circulating the house hours before, hours after, into the next morning, but also since August 2022. There were a lot of evidence to say why it would be Brian would be the suspect. But also that night, there was a big game, and it was suspected that everybody would have a party, and it was said there was a frat party next door, and usually the house in question would be an open party as well. Now, that's not been reported, but when you do these cases, it's good to go to the comments of old articles and things like that. It builds its own picture. And it did say in one of the comments that basically there had been a party next door, and also that there was a chance that Brian actually worked at the game that night, and that's why his phone had pinged. Now, I don't know what truth's in that, but I found it very poignant just because I think there's so many holes in the case, which we're going to come on to, where this case has not went to trial yet. And I can understand the next part of this might cause a little bit of controversy, but just to be true to my crime cases that I do, I've got to give exactly what I get, being the psychic that I am. So the next part might be a little bit of a trigger warning, because I'm possibly going to go against the grain here, which I just feel I've got to put out exactly what I get, and I feel very strongly around this case not being right at all. More so because I think it's much closer to home, and I'll tell you why, and then we'll do the spirit box. I disagree that there's a lot of evidence against Brian, but here's my theory and here's why. It took them 8 hours to call the police to say something had happened. The surviving victim said she heard something at 4 a.m, then at 4:12, but never got up to check. Now, there was a previous student who used to live in that property who actually said that even when you moved about any of the floors, it was an old creaky house, you would have heard, and it was very easy to hear within every room, especially if something like that was going on. Again, taking all those comments in. Now, again, it's trial by social media, I do understand that side of it, but I do feel it builds a much truer picture. These people have lived in that house. Also, it was very, very well known on the campus, the layout of the house, the location of the house, for the reason it was known as Party Central. There were people from the campus that came into the house, and other people within other campuses, or just other people within that area that would come to that house as well. I find it very strange that night they didn't have a party. Now, looking at the comments again, it was actually said in the comments that originally when Kaylee's mum took the call, the niece called her, she actually told her there had been a party, and then it wasn't reported. Now, again, it was just in the comments, so I can't say. Also, they were looking for a white Elantra. Now, Kaylee had an ex-boyfriend, Jack, who lived with Adam. And if you remember in the clip, she said, I've told Adam everything, which I just think is so poignant at that point. There's been phone calls made to Jack through the night by the girls when all this was going on. And people have presumed, obviously, they were trying to raise the alarm. But also, the white Elantra, the car they were looking for, the ex's family has one of those cars. Now, I'm just saying, in one theory of that, if what she said, I've told Adam everything, whatever that may be, could that be a trigger? Now, again, I'm just saying exactly in my opinion, and just my opinion. I know there's a lot of evidence against this man Brian, but I do psychically get the fact they took 8 hours. Everyone was in the house when the police got there. There was no weapon found. There was no bloodstained clothes found. They found Brian's DNA through the genealogy, when in reality that was an open house, and a well-known open house. And if you go and look in the comments yourself, you'll see it for yourself as well, how many people are a bit blown away at the fact that that wasn't mentioned, because apparently there was a frat party taking place next door. Into the spirit box, but firstly, I'll give you an update on up to date from now, April 2024. The trial has actually been postponed again, and it's likely going to happen in 2025. Now, it's been delayed on numerous occasions. No really rhyme or reason why as such, but what we do know is that he is pleading not guilty. Now, he's a PhD criminology student. Obviously a very, very clever man. Like I said, his phone was pinged quite close to the area, but it was also said there's a chance he was working security at that game. I don't know what truth's in that, but I psychically get there could be something in that. What I'm going to do now is we're going to do the spirit box. I'm going to start with asking the spirit box some questions. Please pop in the comments below what you can hear. It could be very hard to hear to begin with, very, very staticky at times as well, but just pop your random comments in because it helps build a story. And if you've been watching for this long, thank you. With the spirit box, the first question I'm going to ask the spirit box is Brian responsible for these murders? What happened on the 13th of November 2022 to these 4 victims? Maddie. Was Maddie the target? There wasn't a target. Can you tell me if there was more than one person involved in this murder? 3. Fisher. Was there a party in 1122 King Road on the 12th of November 2022? Who was the targeted victim that night? Zana? Spirit, can you give me the names of the people that are aware and know who's responsible for this, if it's not Brian? Someone's a medical student. Gillen or can you tell us anything about the case that we don't already know? Why did it take so long for them to make the 911 call? A clean up. Is there anything else you can tell us around this case? Spirit, can you tell me what's going to happen with this case in the next 10 months? Walk out. Is the reason the trial's been delayed is down to lack of evidence or the more evidence? So, like I said, obviously the trial has been delayed again, and it's now been said up to date in April 2024 that it's likely going to take place now in 2025. I feel the case is going to change a lot towards the end of the year. I want to say that when this case did break originally, I did a live on Facebook, and before there was a suspect, I kept predicting it's something to do with someone within the campus. Now, obviously then, when Brian was arrested, it fitted the validation in a sense, but I just don't feel it was him. When Spirit Box said 3, I get that too. Here's my question, just to end it on. So, they said that the victims who survived, phones were used to call 911, but it wasn't them. But they reported the call was from someone unconscious. So was there a third person there who was unconscious? Let's leave it there. Please put your comments below. Thank you for watching. Remember, we are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all Chrissy's Readings across the board. And remember to subscribe and like the bell, and you'll get a wee notification for our next video. Again, I hope you all have a lovely day. Stay safe. Take care.